a couple of years ago, a few organizations came together to say, oh, we've noticed that there have been influx of technology into Africa, new and emerging technology into Africa, and some were also already in the pipeline. So they felt like, okay, I think that we should have a group of people who come to assess what technology comes to Africa, why it is coming, and who benefits, and what effect it will bring to Africa and the African people. So AfriTab, that's Africa Technology Assessment Platform, is basically a platform created to bring together CSOs, researchers, and the community people who are interested to know what is coming, what technologies are coming to Africa, why they are coming, and what benefit or what effects that would be. And then so that we could share the information out there, and then the African people and the African government will be better informed to know whether or not to accept or reject the technologies. Genetic modifications, that's the GMO, the synthetic biology, and then recently we're working on geoengineering. So basically new technologies around climate and food and agriculture. It feels like there's a deliberate, systematic plan for corporate takeover of our food system by the global north. Personally, I think it's a strategic move for recolonization of Africa, because in my belief, anyone who controls your food and agriculture actually controls you. So on a softer note, I think that they're not done colonizing Africa, so they want to come back. Some countries feel no one should talk about assessment because, well, not some countries. Maybe I need to be more specific. The African group of negotiators, I wonder who made them that. Because I wonder, a country like one of those African, if I remember I'll mention, just stand up and say, on behalf of the African group, we say we don't want this. Who made you the African group negotiators when I know that I want assessment? And I think that they are being influenced. I'm not sure who exactly, but I believe that the need to receive aid and grants and whatever is what is making them, it's what is influencing their decision. And that makes them feel that having assessment will be a restriction. So they're more like, I'm opening my borders to bring anything you want to bring. It bothers me also when I hear, because most African people would say, we want development, we want development. So if you put these restrictions here and there, it means you're restricting us from getting developed. And that to me is an anomaly, because development, that word development, you can't define development in Africa like you define in Europe or in another place. Take, for instance, Nigeria was colonized by the Britain. If you want to define development based on how they are developed, it means that an African country will need to go and colonize, enslave people to be able to get the workforce that developed that place. You need to keep exploring and taking from some other group, I don't know what groups, but if we must duplicate, that's a word, duplicate development the way it is in the global north, it means that we have to do the same bad things that we are against. So for me, I think that before we even talk about development, it needs to be redefined based on our own perspective and experiences. So because the need to be like the other countries is the reason why they're opening their borders to anything. Just bring them, as long as it is money, just allow them to come. And people are exploiting that. The global north is exploiting that. The greed for money, the greed for aid. So you can bring the GMOs, you can bring synthetic biology, we don't mind, as long as you give us money. You can come and say, oh, we need to offset carbon to keep your forests like this. For Christ's sake, if this is not too deviating from your question. No. So you wonder about the was that UN that came with the Red Plus, and you say, oh, we need some African countries to keep we've been keeping our forests all this while, and we've been benefiting from our forests, and now you're coming to say we want to pay you stipends for you to be out of your forests, just so that you can offset carbon. So it means let's go back and keep polluting while you keep your forest and not enter your forest. And forests to us is medicine. Forest to us is biodiversity. Forest for us is food. Forest is even a spiritual thing for us in Africa. So you're restricting people from entering the forest because you want them to leave it to offset the carbon you put in the atmosphere. It doesn't make any sense. So our people ignorantly would accept because it's readily seen money. So the benefit is readily seen, it's money. So they accept that, but that is at the expense of all the other benefits we receive from the forest. And we've grown and kept our forest this long. So I think it's a combination of ignorance and greed that makes the, in quote, African group of negotiators to say, we speak on behalf of Africa, we need this, lift the restriction, no assessment. Because if they really sit down to understand the reason why we are calling for assessment on horizon scanning, I think it's something everyone should embrace. The thing about these technologies is that people are gambling with things that they don't really have an entire understanding about, and people are trying to also play God. It is risky because the Cartagena Protocol calls for precautionary principle, which I think is very essential. Where you do not in the simplest term, what you do not understand, where you do not understand its entire implication, you press the brake. So you're playing with a technology that you know that you don't have a full understanding about, and this directly impacts human health and everything, and the environment. So you don't care. Some of these people don't really care about the implication of these things, and they're prying on the ignorance again of the African countries, and they're also using Africa as a petri dish and as a dumping ground, which is very scary and annoying. So you leave your territories, you come down to Africa where no one can say, hello, stop that, to dump your technologies here. You want to test run here, thing here, you want to test here, you want to do it. It shouldn't happen. It is an anomaly. It should not be so, because if you think that these things are so good, why not keep them in your community? Keep them in your countries, keep them in your territories, use them, grow with them, enjoy them for like 20 years. Let us see and say, oh, like, that's fine, I think we want. But you have not explored that already. Why are you coming to Africa? Why? We have mosquitoes, yes. Malaria, yes. But there are better ways to manage these things than coming to tweak the gene of mosquito to what happens when the mosquito becomes resistant to all these things that you're doing or developed into something else. Will you be here for the bites? No. It will still be left for the Africans, and it will develop to something else, and then you come back with your aid. Oh, we are coming back to rescue. Always wanting to play the rescue mission on Africans. I don't think it's right. I don't think they are really paying attention to what happens to when these things go wrong. I don't think anyone pays attention to that. So Africa has always been seen as a dumping ground. That was just a webinar to create awareness to people in our allies and people we work with, just to draw attention to the need for technology assessment in Africa. So yeah, it was a good webinar, and we got a lot of feedback where people say, oh, we didn't know this was coming to Africa, or we didn't know this was coming, or this was going to happen. I think ignorance is one of the things that the people from the globe will not pry on. So the more we can make people understand, the better for us. The quicker we can translate our knowledge to the farmers, to the consumer groups, to the local people, the community people, the better for us, including also the fishers, because, oh, you hear that I think this is now looming, the whole concept about the blue economy now, and that will really impact on the fishers. You hear that, it sounds like a very good concept, yeah? Blue economy, and you're going to make the oceans fine and going to reserve, do this, but what impact will that have to the man whose daily bread is dependent on the fish he gets? Currently not much, but I see that they are coming in subtly, especially now that they've almost won the battle with GMO. The BT cowpea has been officially approved for commercial release in Nigeria. That's GMO beans, and beans is one of our staple foods. And you're saying that we will be eating the beans that is genetically modified, and that's really terrible. It's really terrible. And we have a lot of local varieties of beans that are really nice. So the moment you bring in your genetically modified beans, what happens to our local varieties? What do we pass down? So it's really terrible. So I'm thinking that, yes, some groups are resisting and asking the government to ban that. I hope that we win that. Otherwise, this is like an entrance to the other modification, genetic modification, and who knows, maybe synthetic biology may come in later on. To the African group of negotiators, yes. I think you really need to sit back to ask yourself, these decisions that you make, how do they affect the ordinary African person? How does your decision here, or when you have the opportunity to say something and you come up to say, this is from the African group, do you really sit back to say, how does it affect the ordinary person who does not have the rights and privileges that you have? How does it impact their work, their environment, their daily living? So you may really want to also really talk to yourselves as African groups and not have separate decisions and everywhere, because it's a divide and rule theatrics that the North is using to impose on things and not. And I think we should also be very careful that recolonization is coming on the way. If you don't work together, that's going to happen. Hopefully this gets out to the African groups, that before a group comes out to say we are the African group of negotiators, they should really find out whether is it the minds of Africans or just a few people whose pockets have been greased. For everything anyone is handing down to you, for every time someone is coming to sell something to you, in quote, you need to ask questions. Why is this person selling this thing now? Why this time? Why now? Who is going to benefit? Who is this going to impact? How is this going to impact on the people? So if you're able to ask these questions, it helps you unravel all the mystery behind it, because some of these things come in very beautiful packages, but underneath it, there's something more. So as Africans, we need to keep asking questions before we embrace anything. You need to just ask the questions and ask rightly, I think. Send back our bronzes and leave the mosquito. Use it in your communities, in your continent, and leave us alone.